Data's complete Star Trek timeline explained introduced on Star Trek: The Next Generation LT. Commander Data, Brent Spiner, quickly became one of Star Trek's most interesting and beloved characters. An advanced, one-of-a-kind android, Data served as the operations officer aboard the USS Enterprise D under the command of Captain Jean-Luc Picard, Patrick Stewart. Data's universal kindness and childlike sense of wonder made him difficult to dislike, and he remains an important part of modern Star Trek. Brent Spiner's nuanced performance helped make Data stand out among TNG's incredibly strong cast, and his quest to be human became one of TNG's best ongoing storylines. Thanks in part to Brent Spiner's performance as Data, as well as his portrayal of Data's evil twin brother Lore and various Soong family members, Star Trek: The Next Generation's data-centric episodes remain some of the show's strongest. Like Spock, Leonard Nimoy on Star Trek: The Original Series, Data allowed TNG to explore humanity from an outsider's perspective. After the conclusion of TNG, Data played a significant role in all 4 Star Trek: The Next Generation films until his heroic sacrifice in Star Trek: Nemesis. Data was then absent from the Star Trek franchise until the character made a surprising return in Star Trek: Picard, not once, but twice. Dr. Noonien soon created Data on the planet Omicron Theta around 2336 as the 5th of 6 androids. Data lived out his earliest days among the colonists on Omicron Theta, learning from the world around him just as a human child would. At one point, Dr. Soong deactivated Data to upload the memories of the colonists to the android's positronic brain. While Data was deactivated, a crystalline entity attacked the colony, forcing Dr. Soong and his wife, Juliana Fionnuala Flanagan, to flee and leave Data behind. On February 2, 2338, the USS Tripoli found Data and reactivated him. Data struggled without his parents, but his neural net continued to develop as he achieved sentience. Because a Starfleet vessel had found him, Data chose to attend Starfleet Academy beginning in 2341. Although his lack of understanding regarding social cues sometimes made Data's life difficult, he achieved high marks and eventually graduated with honors in 2345. Data's first assignment was aboard the USS Trieste, where he advanced from an ensign to a lieutenant, before being promoted to lieutenant commander in 2360. 4 years later, in 2364, Data joined the crew of the USS Enterprise D as its operations officer. As the operations officer on the USS Enterprise D, Data participated in many away missions and was regularly left in command of the bridge for the night shift, as he did not require sleep. Data's android abilities and immunity to disease proved vital on numerous occasions, and the Enterprise would have been destroyed several times over if Data had not been aboard. Throughout his time on the Enterprise, Data learned more and more about what it meant to be human, often with the help of his best friend LT. Commander Geordi Law Forge LeVar Burton. In Star Trek: The Next Generation Season 1, Data met his brother Lore and learned more about his creation. The following year, a Federation judge determined that Data was an individual and had the right to make his own choices. In TNG Season 3, Data created an android daughter named Lau, Holly Todd, based on his own positronic technology, although she later suffered a tragic cascade failure and ceased to function. Early in TNG Season 4, Data met his creator Dr. Soong just before the elderly man's death at the hands of Lore. Data later had to deactivate his brother after Lore manipulated Data into allying with the Borg. Data, the beloved android officer from Star Trek: The Next Generation (TNG), is one of the most iconic characters in the Star Trek franchise. Played by Brent Spiner, Data's journey from creation to death, and even beyond, is both fascinating and complex. Here's a detailed timeline of his life, from his initial activation to his legacy in the post-Nemesis era. The creation of Data was constructed by Dr. Noonien Soong, one of the leading cyberneticists of the 24th century. His origins trace back to the planet Omicron Theta, a colony where Soong and his wife, Juliana, had established a laboratory. Soong aimed to create a fully functional, sentient android, and Data was the latest in a series of androids that included his predecessor and brother Lore. Lore, while technically superior, was deactivated due to behavioral issues, and soon proceeded to build Data with improved ethical programming. Data was activated in 2338 after the destruction of the Omicron Theta colony by the crystalline entity, a destructive life form. With no memories of the incident, Data was found and adopted by the crew of the USS Tripoli. From here, he was enrolled at Starfleet Academy, graduating in 2345. Data's enrollment and subsequent rise in Starfleet demonstrate his unique combination of intelligence, physical capabilities, and deep curiosity about humanity. Joining the Enterprise D 2364 in 2364, Data was assigned to the USS Enterprise D under the command of Captain Jean-Luc Picard. This marks the beginning of Data's most well-known chapter in the Star Trek timeline. Throughout his service on the Enterprise, Data developed profound friendships with his fellow officers, most notably with Picard, Geordi LaForge, and Commander Riker. His interactions with the crew often revolved around his quest to understand human emotions, relationships, and the meaning of life, leading to many of the franchise's most touching and thought-provoking moments. Early in his tenure aboard the Enterprise, Data encountered Lore, who had been reactivated. Lore's malevolent actions set him up as a recurring antagonist in Data's life, highlighting the dichotomy between the two brothers. Where Lore represented unpredictability and chaos, Data stood for control, moral integrity, and logic. Data's legal battle for personhood, 2365. One of the key moments in Data's timeline occurs in the TNG episode The Measure of a Man, 2368. In this landmark episode, Data's rights as a sentient being were challenged. Starfleet scientist Bruce Maddox wanted to disassemble Data for study, with the goal of creating more androids. Data resisted, leading to a legal battle that would determine whether he was considered Starfleet property or an individual with his own rights. Captain Picard successfully argued that Data was a sentient being, paving the way for his continued service and autonomy. This victory was not only pivotal for Data, but also for the exploration of artificial intelligence in the Star Trek universe. It raised questions about the nature of consciousness and what it means to be human, themes that Star Trek continues to explore. Development of emotions, 2369 to 2371. Data's quest to understand human emotions culminated with the discovery of an emotion chip created by Dr. Soong. This chip, originally intended for Lore, was given to Data in the TNG episode Brothers, 2369. However, Data hesitated to use it until Star Trek Generations, 2371, when he finally installed the chip, resulting in his first experiences with a wide range of emotions, including fear, joy, and humor. The addition of emotions to Data's character brought new layers to his personality, though he initially struggled with the overwhelming flood of sensations. Over time, Data began to control and integrate his emotions into his understanding of the world, drawing him closer to achieving his goal of becoming more human. Data's Sacrifice, 2379. The climax of Data's journey occurs in Star Trek Nemesis, 2379, where he made the ultimate sacrifice. The Enterprise is pitted against Shinzen, a clone of Captain Picard, and a battle takes place aboard Shinzen's ship, the Scimitar. In order to save Picard and the Enterprise, Data beams aboard the Scimitar and uses a portable transporter to send Picard back to safety. He then destroys the ship and himself in the process, preventing the release of a deadly radiation weapon that would have wiped out the Enterprise. Data's death was a deeply emotional moment for the Star Trek universe, symbolizing his growth from an artificial life form into a truly selfless individual. His willingness to sacrifice himself for others was a defining moment in his pursuit of humanity. The legacy of Data and his return, 2399. Though Data's physical form was destroyed, his legacy lived on. In Star Trek Picard, set in 2399, Data's influence continues to play a major role in the life of Jean-Luc Picard. Picard grapples with the loss of his friend, while Data's daughter, Soji, a synthetic life form, becomes a central figure in the series.